For part of my job, I travel around the country speaking at high schools and colleges and junior highs on the topic of chastity and dating and relationships. Now, after a lot of these presentations, the students will come up to me and we'll have these long conversations about what's going on in their lives. And so often what happens, I find, with students who are struggling with sexual sin or addiction, is they'll say this phrase all the time. They'll say, "Jason, I don't even know who I am anymore." It seems as if the further we drift away from God, the further we fall into sin, the further we not just get from Him, the further we get from ourselves. And when we turn ourselves back to God, and we begin to have this conversion, the first thing He gives us back is ourselves. Because if you look at the saints, the Mother Teresa's and John Paul II's, I think what they are, the sainthood, the holiness, this is the full bloom, the full blossom of human personality. This is who God created us to be. And when we fall into sin, what we're falling away from is our calling of something that God has planted within our hearts from all eternity, to live in His image and likeness and be a reflection of His love on earth. John Paul II once said that the dignity of a woman is intimately linked with the love she gives and the love she receives. And this is also true of men, but think about this. If the love that I'm giving is false, if my love is more lust, what happens to my own identity? I think we begin to lose it. But through God's mercy and through His forgiveness, and especially the sacrament of reconciliation, we can find that dignity and our own identity once again.
Chastity is living the gift of our sexuality according to God's design. Now, what I have behind me here is an intricate, beautiful design for a bonfire. But what you don't see is the last 2 weeks, over 75 people, lots of planning and coordination, all coming together to create this structure. But it's not complete. What it needs still is the actual thing it was designed for, the fire. Well, sex is a little bit like fire, and chastity is a little bit like the road that leads up to that fire. It really is a long process. You might feel that way as a young person. I was designed for more than this. I was designed to be with somebody else. Why all the waiting and why all the preparation? Why do I have to learn to love now without having sex? Well, the same reason that it wasn't a good idea for them to light the fire before it was completely ready. Sex is like fire. It's difficult to wait for the right time and the right place to be able to light that fire, but if we do, if we trust God's design for that, in God's timing, that's not Hollywood. That's not a weak flame that's born from a selfish moment. That's actually the fruit of a lot of hard work, of a lot of people coming together, as we talked about, working hard, from sacrifice. John Paul II said that a home is not warmed by the fire of pleasure, which burns away quickly like a pile of withered grass. That's not a pile of withered grass. There's a lot of layers, a lot of foundation, a lot of structure that was built here. And the fire we had to wait to light it when it was finally ready. That's what chastity's about. The patience, the hard work, the waiting, the love that it takes to be able to sacrifice. That's what makes the beauty of sex inside of marriage what it should be. That it will bring about the light and the warmth and the heat and the beauty of what this fire is bringing to us. It's worth the wait.
If you were going to pilot a ship like the one behind me down the Mississippi River, you'd need a lot of know-how. You see, this river is powerful. It's full of twists, it's full of turns, the currents are strong, and if you were going to even turn, you'd have to know way ahead of time how you're going to turn, where you're going to turn. You can't make last-minute decisions. At the same time, if you were going to endeavor to be a pilot on one of those ships, you'd really have to train and train. This is a lot like chastity because the rivers, the currents of our passions, of our sexuality can be very strong, and we don't want to be making last-minute decisions and twists and turns. What we want to do is we want to chart a course ahead to know where we want to end up and how we're going to get there. So you have to think ahead. Even now, think ahead to marriage, think ahead to maybe the priestly vocation or the religious vocation that God's calling you to, and train now and make your turns and steer your course the right way. And that's how we want to live our lives. That's how we want to make our decisions.
Imagine two scenarios. One, you're sitting there, somebody who loves you goes out and buys you a cookie. It's so good, isn't it? Scenario two, You have a cookie. You hope you can share it with somebody you love, and someone comes along and steals it. What's up with that? This is the difference between love and lust. Love is patient. Love is patient in giving, and love is patient in receiving. There's a mutual self-gift in love. It's not one-sided like lust, which is all about stealing cookies and not sharing them.
Modesty is not just about clothes. It's not just about a hemline. Modesty is decency, and modesty protects the person and their love. So either it's what we're wearing, how we're acting, how we're talking, how we're dancing, whatever we're doing in life, we should be doing it modestly because that's protecting us and other people as well. Especially for girls, I know, I love fashion, probably just like a lot of girls out there. And so I can dress in a way that shows my inner beauty. And it also says something about who I am and what I believe. Clothing is a powerful communicator. But just as clothing is, so is our body language, so is our speech. And so if I'm speaking and acting in a way that's in accordance with my dignity as a child of God, that's modesty. That's decency, and that's the most freeing way to live.
In the New Testament, St. Paul reminds us that though we are many parts, we are all one body. Now imagine for just a moment that your left hand became very selfish. So selfish that it actually decided to take all the blood from your body for itself. And while that might seem a good thing for itself, pretty quickly the rest of the body would die, and ultimately the left hand would die as well. This is true about us when it comes to living our own lives. God created us to enjoy relationships. Selfishness actually puts us on a fast track to the place that God never intended us to be. Hell is reserved for people that are very selfish. On the other hand, God destined you and I to be with Him for forever and eternity. He calls us to be generous with our hearts, to be generous with all that we have and all that we are, that we can be like Him in order that we might be with Him. Selfishness is not the way to Christ. Generosity is.
The world without girls would be incomplete, I feel, because I feel like we have two genders for a reason. It just completes the way we interact with each other.
If there's no man on the earth, I think I would be devastated, first of all.
A world without guys would have no kids. I mean, honestly.
The world would be quieter without any girls in it.
Better drivers.
What would the world be like if there were no women at all?
I would go crazy. The world would be very pink. Lonely.
It wouldn't really be that fun. There'd really be no point to it.
We wouldn't have love if there were no boys.
The world without boys would there would probably be less wars, definitely.
The world would be less traumatized without girls.
The world without boys would be maybe more neat and clean.
Dirty. It would be a very dirty world without girls.
What would the world be like without any boys?
I think it'd be really interesting not to have to get dressed up or look nice.
Well, there wouldn't be people to have more people, so there'd be no young people. Everyone would get old.
Very, very dull and boring.
I'd have nothing pretty to look at. Dudes can't talk to other dudes. Sometimes they need to talk to a girl to get through something, maybe.
You need guys because there's different. Girls they get emotional and sometimes things that they worry about, I need a different perspective.
Do you think you could tell me, what would the world be like without any girls?
If we didn't have boys, it would be a whole bunch of mess.
Yeah, there wouldn't be like competition, like looking better for this guy, or like she's going out with him. Oh, I want to go out with him, you know?
When you think of being married or having a wife, you kind of you know, you don't think about yourself as much. You think of you're living your life for somebody else. So without somebody to live for, you know, it'd be hard.
Yeah, the two balance together makes the world go around.